Furious Driving, proud to be supported by Diamond Bright, protecting, cleaning and caring for the Furious fleet and for yours with 10% off using code FD10. Follow the links in the description below. Hello and welcome to Furious Driving, and this is the annual or sometimes biannual roundup of the Furious fleet, or as some might call it, reality check. It's that little game where I kind of count up how many cars I've got, and the challenge is to see how many I can actually remember and if I can work out where I've put them all. So I do this video every 6 months to a year just because I get so many comments and messages and things all across the videos and social media and everything else saying what's happening with such and such a car, where's that car gone, when is that one coming back on the channel, have you got any plans for that one? And people who are maybe new to the channel just had the annual YouTube stats for 2024, and there's an awful lot of new subscribers watching the channel who might not know of some of the cars that haven't been on for a long time. So it's a good opportunity to have a quick roundup and a refresher and a reminder and let you know what's going on with everything and where the cars are in their journey and what we've got plans for over the coming year, because 2025 is just around the corner and we've got some plans for some of them. That doesn't sound too optimistic, but I promise you it's going to be good. Probably. Right, so without further ado, as I believe we have to say on the internet, let's start with what's here. Well, in fact, let's start with what's not here, because the elephant that's not in the room is, as always, the Rover 420 GSI Estate, which this time last year I dropped off at a paint shop to go and get, well, a complete bare metal respray, and they were going to also do the rear 3/4 arch rust problem and basically make the thing beautiful and give it back to me like a new car. Well, the good news is it's safe. The other good news is I've not had to pay for storage for a year. The bad news is they haven't started it yet. They've been very busy, and I made the fateful mistake of saying the dreadful words you must never say to a body shop: I'm not in a rush. And so it's still there. I did say to them, well, could we have it for the NEC, because the Rover 200-400 Club wanted one of those cars for their stand at the NEC Classic Motor Show, and they thought maybe they'd get around to it, but I don't know, some other stuff came up and they never got around to it. So hopefully at some point in the new year we'll have the 400 back here, which is a lovely car. It's incredibly rare. Last time I checked on how many left, which is notoriously unreliable, but I think there are about 17 or 18 420 GSI Tourers left on the road, which is tiny numbers. That's kind of what I like to collect, those just rare, unusual cars that you just don't see around anymore, which makes finding parts so easy. Anyway, so that's the 420 GSI, which isn't here. It's done 0 mileage. It's been sat around at the body shop, so fingers crossed it's fine. I'm sure it is. But when that car comes back, it's going to look amazing. The same company took care of Quentin, the Rover 200 convertible, a couple of years ago, so the paint is going to be great. I know that's going to be good. The bodywork's going to look mint. That's going to be good. Once it's back, I've got big plans for that car. First of all, I'm going to have to get a new windscreen for it because the windscreen is cracked. They're going to have to take the windscreen out to paint it. So I'm currently trying to find a new windscreen for that car. When it comes back, it's going to need a lot of work. It's kind of scraped through the last couple of MOTs with big work underneath it, lots of fixing suspension and stuff. So we're going to do new suspension, new brakes, new wheels, new tyres, rebush the whole thing, do the gear linkages, make the thing look amazing, give it a new exhaust pipe. It's going to be a little bit of a resto mod kind of a deal. It's going to be amazing when it comes back. That's a little way again. Okay, so that's the 420. What else is here? So this I'm tapping my hands on right now is my lovely 2002 Ford Crown Victoria Police Interceptor, the P71 Crown Vic. I absolutely love this thing. People have said, am I going to do much more with it? Am I going to sell it? I'm going to keep it. And the thing is, I'm going to keep it a long time. I wanted one of these cars for so long. I've been to America quite a few times, and every time I've been there, I've made a point of trying to get a ride in a Crown Vic taxi, and the number of them that are ex-police P71s like this is just incredible. When I've stood in taxi ranks and let people go ahead of me to let the boring cars go through first, so that I could be getting into the Crown Vic, I could see further down. So I've wasted hours just waiting for these things to arrive, and now I've actually got one. It's amazing to have it. Bodywork is all done because obviously I just had to spend all of last summer underneath the car with a welder. My favourite summer ever. Car runs well, it drives nicely. I still need to get the front wings sorted out. I think that's going to be a body shop job because the cost of importing wings, which are not expensive in America, but $115 each, shipping them over is about £1,000. So that's not going to happen. So at some point in the next few months, I'm going to drop this off with a body shop and say, make the wings perfect. They can just graft on some metal, as I did, probably do it better than I did, paint it all, sort it all out. There's a little bit of rust bubbling on this arch, get that sorted out as well, and make everything just really, really, really nice. Won't be a big job. I've got a set of concealed, unmarked police car strobes to hide in this thing, and there are some engine upgrades you can do to these as well, because this is an early noughties one. It's the low 200s power band, but they went up to about 250, so with intakes, manifolds, that kind of stuff, you can boost the power of these up quite nicely. It's also too quiet, isn't it? And we need to do a European road trip in this thing because it's left-hand drive. Right, next car. Right, I should probably put some kind of counter up on the screen so I know where we got to in the cars. This is the third one that I've done on camera, but I've only just started. And you might think that I'm into all these cars. It's not very environmentally friendly, but look, it's another green car. This is another rare Rover. This is a 200 VI. Again, around 15 or so of these left on how many left. I need to go and double check the figures on these. Astonishingly rare. One of these turned up at KGF Classics a month or so ago, and it was all over the internet, all over the forums, because finding a VI for sale is such a rare event. That particular one was astonishingly low mileage, which did make it a bit more exciting. This one's quite high. It's about 135,000 miles on this, but it still runs absolutely beautifully. If you've not seen the beginning of this car's story arc, when it arrived with me, it had the ubiquitous blown head gasket. Of course it did, it's a K-series. But since then we've changed the head gasket. The head was skimmed, so that meant all the valve stem seals were done and it was all rebuilt as thoroughly as possible at the top end. This has got the VVC variable valve timing head, which makes it about 150 something horsepower. It's a great fun car. It's fast, it's nimble, it's really comfortable, and it looks so good as well. It's super rare, and at the time of its launch it was the most luxurious 200 you could get. It's got things like heated windscreen washer jets on it, for goodness sake, so that's quite exciting. It does have a few cosmetic jobs to do to it still. We've done lots of mechanical work to it, obviously, but it does need, well, had new tyres on it not so long ago, but the wheels could do a refurbing. At some point in its distantly recent past, it had a coming together with a fence post, I think, on that rear quarter, so that needs to be sorted out and taken care of and tidied up, because it doesn't look as pretty as it potentially could do. So that's more bodywork, so another trip to the body shop once the 420 comes back from there, or this time I won't say no rush, this time I'll say please crack on as quick as you can, guys. It does need, I think, lowering a tiny bit. Cars of the 90s sit too high to my modern eyes. I don't want to make the wheels any bigger, I want to keep it original looking, but maybe just like 2 finger width lower would be really nice. And it needs rebushing on the suspension, probably it's 135,000 miles. And also the gear linkage could do with the same slop taking out trick as I did to the Tomcat recently, which is the rubber bushes at the bottom of the gear shift and that little metal linkage that sits just outside the gearbox. That was an afternoon's work and it's absolutely transformed the Tomcat, well, at least as far as it has driving around the farmyard. Also, it's still currently missing a window regulator in this door, so there's no door card on that. That's on the back seat. Other than that, really good car, although as I look around it, I can see where it has been painted various times in its past on different parts of it. So I think this is another candidate for a full bare metal respray, including sorting that out. So that's another, well, another big bill beckoning, but it's a car that's definitely worth it. Okay, so sticking with the green machines, this is another eco-friendly special because this is my Unos Roadster. Now 1990 to 2025, that's 35 years old. Shocking, really. This is one of the most funnable cars you're ever going to sit yourself in. There is nothing like driving an MX5. Now, I've driven a bunch of them and I always thought I must buy an MX5 at some point. And I always put it off and I don't know why, and now I finally have. I really wish I'd done it sooner because it's always, always fun. This is the Unos Roadster and it's a V Special, so it's a limited edition from 1990. It has got the long nose crank, which makes it more reliable, but it's also a very early car from that point of view, so it's interestingly early, which is good. When it arrived, it did have a Lotus badge on the bonnet, but I was gifted a proper Unos badge by a friend, so that looks good now. I've changed the wheels to these lovely Steelies, which are actually mini R50 steels. They are a 15-inch steel, which I've painted in, I think it's an Audi Goldie Silver. I do have the can somewhere, and I think that looks absolutely fantastic. When I put a little short up about doing that, the world went mad. So many views. Some people loved it, a lot of people hated it. I think it looks awesome. I do need to redo the suspension. I put on a set of max speeding rods lowering coilovers. I cannot find any setting on there that is lower than factory. I can find plenty of settings that are taller, but nothing that's lower. Maybe at some point in the very near future I'll whip those off and have another crack at that, because the next option is to put the standard shocks back on, but with a set of lowering springs from MX5 parts, which seem quite good. Over the last year, I have done a couple of changes to this car internally. I've refurbed the wooden Nardi steering wheel, looks fantastic. I fitted a unique gear knob, which is actually made out of old skateboard decks, but in the colour scheme for this car, so it's the green and the tan and a little bit of pink to add some colour to it. And I fitted an inductive charging pad in there for the phone, and I've stuck a new battery in it and changed all the side lights to LEDs, and someone through Junk in the Trunk sent me a set of clear lens headlamps which look really, really good. So this car, oh, I've put the running lights on as well, so when you put the side lights on, these are no longer just reflectors, these actually glow up, making the car a little bit more visible, because it's one thing I'm always worried about with this car is how small you are on the road and how invisible. So anything to make it look a bit shinier. This car, yeah, needs lowering, sorting out, needs a bit of polishing and a little bit of paint on that corner, because the reason I got the car was because the previous owner's garage had fallen on it and damaged the wing, so I replaced the wing, but it needs paint. So yet another car needing paint. Add that onto the list to go to the body shop. Oh, and there's a tiny, tiny bubble just starting on the rear of the sill on this side. So possibly it'll have to wind up at the body shop for that as well. There's always something. Right, that's car number 4, I believe, isn't it? Yes, right. Car number 5, another Rover. Yes, it's the Rover 75, a car which I've never come up with a satisfactory name for, because they've got this number plate, TCK. There must be some kind of clock-related name we can come up with this thing. I've yet to think of anything other than just calling it TOC. That's just way too obvious. What's that movie with the singing teapot? Isn't there like a talking clock in that? What's the name of that thing? Right, anyway, so this is the 75. I had this since about 18 months ago. Bought it, or acquired it in a swap in order to do like the trading up series. The idea was to get it, do a few jobs to it. It's just had a fresh MOT at the time, and flip it on as quick as possible, try and make a profit, and then keep the trading up series going on. The problem is, it is absolutely beautiful. The first owner on this car, it turned out, when I started going through the history, were Rover themselves. We think it was something to do with like a rental car scheme they did, rather than a management-owned car, but it could have been either, to be honest, because lots of company cars are registered in the same place. It did that for 6 months, then it came down to Beadle's Gillingham, which is a local Rover dealer to here, and an old gentleman, wasn't old at the time, back in 2003, who lives not far over there. He bought it as an approved used car. He had the car over 20 years and spent an absolute fortune. The wad of receipts is just insane on this car. And he kept it really nicely. I mean, sometimes you get an old car and things started off well and you get down to the cheap tyres at the end. This still had a new set of Dunlops on it. So he wasn't cheaping out on even the basic stuff. And not long before he gave up driving and just sold the car onto the MOT man who I bought it from, he'd spent several £1000s having a new head fitted to the thing. The idea was I would force myself to sell it, and I sent it up to Stone Cold Classics, who were going to sell it on my behalf. And that was the difficult part, was watching it drive away with Wayne. And because it's a beautiful car, it's so nice to sit in. I feel almost attached to the thing. My friend driving it away and then me not seeing it again, that made it an easier parting. The problem was it blew its head gasket, and then we booked someone to come and do it, and he didn't turn up for various reasons, and then finally Wayne just had it shipped back down to me to sort out. And so in the last few videos you've seen of this car, I've done a head gasket on it, and I've done the timing belt on it, and I've just been bleeding the brakes. And in the future videos I'm going to be tidying up underneath the car a bit more, making it really presentable underneath. And I've got a set of brake discs and pads ordered because the rear ones are a bit scored. I might as well do the front ones at the same time. So basically I'm making the car too nice to sell. Also I need to redo the passenger door card because the fabric is bubbling off, as they all do on 75s, but I'm not going to be able to find exactly the right fabric, so I'm going to have to do both driver's doors on that, which is going to be a pain, but it's a job that needs doing. The car drives beautifully, although everyone keeps saying when are you going to sell it, and I do have to sell it at some point. I don't want to rush into that, and I think maybe a road trip or something in the new year would be definitely in order, at least a driving video or two, go and do some exploring in the thing. It's such a lovely car to be. It's quite rapid-ish. It's 150 horsepower, but because it's a heavy car, it doesn't feel quick. Same kind of power output as the 200 VI behind the camera. But that car is a rip-snorting yob, and it wants to spin its wheels the whole time, and it wants to go quickly, and it's huge fun. It's enormous fun. This is very much more of a sedate cruiser, and it feels like that Bentley vibes, that baby Bentley kind of feeling is very much in effect with this car. And it's always nice to be in. So yeah. People keep saying you need to sell something else and keep this one, and yeah, I kind of agree. But it is worth a fair bit of money. Certainly once I've done the brakes and things, we're pushing sort of beyond the £3,000 mark, because it's such a nice example of, an appreciating future classic, if I want to put it that way. Right, that was Rover number 3, and car number 5. Right, car number 6 in the garage. Right, stepping into the garage, and yes, I am trying to save the battery out of another Rover. This is the infamous P6 V8 with the 4.6 litre in the engine bay, which has been, well, one of the big video series of the year. Let's try and step over the welder and the batteries. This is such a cool and beautiful car. Getting this 4.6 running this year was a major challenge, but now it seems to work okay. It was a little bit coffee spluttery the last time I drove it around the block a couple of weeks ago, but it might have just been low on fuel because the fuel gauge doesn't work. And with an engine like this, you need that fuel gauge working, so that's a project for the new year. I need to sort out the cooling systems. Someone sent me a SD1 expansion tank, so I need to plumb that in. Probably might do that this afternoon actually. I need to change the suspension to make it just a tiny bit lower, but that's actually very complicated on these cars. The guy who made me my 4.6 badge for the boot, he actually has lowered a Rover P6 for competition, and I've seen how he did it, and it is very complicated and it needs some custom made parts, but it is doable and they look so good. It also needs some different wheels and it needs a manual conversion, and my plan had been for a particular gearbox which I was trying to sort out, but I thought it was easy and now I can't find the people who make the bell housing for it anymore, so that's kind of awkward. It's also going to be expensive again because once the gearbox is changed, I'm going to need a custom prop shaft made for it, and then we're going to need to change the diff because this diff isn't really strong enough. I also need to radically tidy up this garage, which means putting some new shelving up because there's not enough shelving in here by a long way. I had managed to get lots of them tidy, but then I stripped a lot of the Mercedes apart and there's loads of boxes of bits of Mercedes W123 looking around the place. Oh, I'd forgotten about the 123. Okay, so this is car number 6 and Rover number 4, I think. The 123 I had forgotten. That is currently with 6D diesels. I had basically decided that that project was going to be too much. It was beyond my welding skills, beyond my budget, and I was wondering if it was even going to be safe as a repaired car because it's such an extreme amount of work to get it back on the road. Then people kept saying, you need to talk to Al at 6D Diesels, and I was like, well, yeah, maybe he could do it, I don't know, but I'm not going to ring up some random stranger off the internet and say, hi, do my car for me, I'm famous. But we ran into each other at Rustival and got chatting, and turns out he's as nice a guy in real life as he appears to be on his videos. So we had like a video chat showing him all the rust in the car, and he went, yep, that's absolutely fine. So he came up, trailered the car away, and now it's down at his place, and at some point in the new year, probably, I guess, he will crack on and get the shell welded and then bring it back, and I'll give him a bunch of money and then we'll have a functioning W123, which will only take a matter of minutes to put all the stuff. I'm looking at boxes of fuel injection system on the floor and thinking, oh god, why did I take that off? Would almost have been better if I hadn't met him and I could have just sold all the stuff. Oh well. But anyway, yes, so the 123, not dead, still owned by me. Yeah, I should add that one to the tally of cars, and that is somewhere in Hampshire or Dorset or somewhere. It's, yeah, I don't even know where my car is. It's somewhere in southern England. Yes, but that will come back at some point. I'm in no huge rush because I've got nowhere to put it, so I do need a bigger barn before it comes back. Right, okay. W123, not much more to say about that one apart from it's going to take a lot of putting back together, and it will need paint as well. So it needs a few things. It needs the old SU carburetors replacing with something much more meaty. It needs like a big Offenhauser and Edelbrock combination with a better inlet manifold. The whole bit needs to be switched out. Ah, dear me. New alternator, that's been solved with the rattly noises problem. Yeah, it's generally pretty good. Will it start? I wasn't going to try and start it, but I have put a fresh gallon of V-Power in this, so... Come on, car. I've got the BL choke clip on there. No choke. Let's try no choke. Interesting. Right, it won't start again. I don't know why. Maybe this car is the one to be sold rather than the 75, because it's always hated me. This car's always hated me. Right, now we have the oldest, longest serving member of the fleet, but also the second oldest on the fleet, the 1972 Rover 2000. And just check out this interior. This is absolutely beautiful. I did fit a couple of years ago, I think before 2000, a fairly modern Alpine DAB. I think I need to be replacing that with one of those Becker, you know, what do they call them, the retro style ones. There's a variety of those. They all look so good. The old DAB and modern stuff hidden in there. This car though has been off the road for a while because it wouldn't start. The last time I reconnected the battery, the alternator, this alternator, made a funny whiffly kind of burning smell, and then I decided to unplug the battery. We're also surrounded by lots of bits of Mercedes, some bits of Rover 400, and this is a new old stock rear passenger door for this car because the rear passenger door is actually a little bit rusty on the inner edges, so I need to paint that and get that fitted. Meanwhile, that is a spare bonnet for the W123, which is well, about to be fitted before the car got carted away. Bits of car that aren't this car literally everywhere. That's all 123, that's 123. These are boxes and boxes of manuals that I picked up along the way, basically. Rover 400. Mini. I need, does anyone need an inlet manifold and GEMS injection system from a P38 Range Rover? I believe it's working. It's the one that came off the one that's in the P6. Anyway, so this is the business end of the 2000. There's the new alternator waiting to go in. This is the engine waiting to have that attached to it. And basically, hopefully, once the alternator's in there, I need to rewire or replace the wiring to the starter motor, which seems to be a bit kind of broken and brittle. So I think that's why the car won't start. A little bit of electrical wiring. And then hopefully we're all good. Ah, man alive. It's always something. Just spare parts for so many cars. One day I might buy a Tagora or a Peugeot 504, and then I will be ready. Or I did a Cadet D. Yeah, these all came out of the Roots garage when it was closing down and being refurbished. And these, I can't get them down. These pod loudspeakers are what I used to have on the back shelf of this actual car. Maybe I'll put them back in one day. So the plans for this car: fit that alternator, which is sitting over there right now, sort out the wiring to the starter motor, get the battery back in, and hopefully that will then start. Over there is a front passenger side wing, because that wing that's on there is a bit crusty as well. They go in the area just underneath the side lights, and that has done that. I had it painted years ago, but the guy who painted it made the colour wrong. It's all too creamy and not the right colour at all. So a bit of paint work to do. Again, yet more paint work. Always with the paint work. And then this thing will be ready to drive. There's virtually nothing keeping this car off the road. It's just a little niggly thing or two, and it'll be up and running. And I would love to have this running as soon as possible because it's my absolute favourite of all the cars. So here we have the Spirito di Punto, the oldest Fiat Punto in the UK that we know of, according to the Fiat Owners Club. That doesn't, no, it's condensation since I opened the door. That's weird. Yeah, this is tucked away safely in a lockup away from home. It's on sawn. We do have the plastic cladding across the roof to try and keep the drips off, though it hasn't really been dripping quite so much lately. Something I was going to do is get a whole bunch more of this and line the entire garage with these insulation boards to try and keep it a bit warmer and less condensation-y. This is quite a good garage in so much as cars as big as the Rover 400 Estate can actually fit in here, but it's quite narrow, so only 90s cars really are narrow enough to fit in here, but surprisingly long. Anyway, Punto, running well, didn't have any problem with it. New battery in it, not long before it's been parked up. I'll cut you back to last time I came over here and tried to start it. Yeah, so the car runs, it's disconnected from the power at the moment. It needs that rear corner sorting out. So yet again, it's another one for the list of, yes, this car needs paint sorting. This was the one that's actually scheduled to go in as soon as the 420 Estate is done. This is booked in to go in immediately after that. If I was to have to sell a car, perhaps this might be the one to go, because I've done a few drives with it, I've enjoyed it an awful lot, but it's not the most exciting car, but it is a very nice car. It's a tricky one really. Anyway, next car. Right, a quick drive shuffle, and we have the unsung hero of the fleet, or the unsung workhorse of the fleet, I should say, here on the driveway, the 2017 Mercedes C250 AMG Premium Plus 4MATIC, the S205 chassis C-Class, which is actually far better than I give it a lot of credit for, because it suffers with being an automatic. I do it down quite a lot because I don't like automatics at all, and I bought it because I need a ULEZ car that is also an estate car and is also super duper reliable. If you follow this channel, you probably follow Hubnut as well, and you've probably seen how he's been sort of semi-stranded recently with his big cars and his sensible cars all kind of dying at the same time, and he's been left with driving his £200 Perodua Canari, or no, it's his Daihatsu, isn't it? £200 Daihatsu as his only functioning car, and having to do sort of make epic cross-country journeys with tons of luggage in a tiny car. Now, I've got these really cool cars which are all brilliant, but they're either tiny or low mileage and too perfect to abuse, or just really not sensible, and all these other kind of things. I just need one car which is very sensible, because it's new enough to be, you know, touch wood and all that. Touch wood, always going to be reliable, economical, can use it in all conditions, you don't have to worry about it. It's just a new car that you don't worry about. That's this car. But if you're going to do that, life's too short for boring cars, as they say, so at least get one that's actually fun. The C250 is a bit more pokey than the C220, so it's over 200 horsepower, 0 to 60 is about 7 and a bit seconds. Top speed, I think, is limited to 150. It's four-wheel drive. It's got a fabulous interior. I mean, if you're going to have to sit in a car for many hours, at least get one that's actually nice. It's got real buttons, not stupid touch screens. It's got actual wood, but it's got nice dark black wood. Looks really good, nice leather. I've replaced this panel, that was the only thing wrong with it. This had to be restitched, looks amazing. And now it's got all season tyres on it, so this thing will climb a mountain and do it fast, economically and in style. So yeah, it's a great car, doesn't get talked about much because basically it doesn't go wrong very often. Currently the only thing really wrong with it is that crack in the windscreen, which I've not got around to fixing. That'll be a job for the new year. Oh, and incidentally, yes, it is pretty much always filthy. I am about to wash it, but I need to go and find a bottle of Ruby Red for the wheels, which I think might be in the shed. Well, a list of my broken cars wouldn't be complete without perhaps the most broken of them all, the Alfa 159. Now, I have been doing, as with the other cars, stuff in the background, but not enough to complete a video. There is a major plan for this car for, well, the coming weeks over Christmas and into January. Obviously, Christmas is going to shut everything down for a couple of weeks. And while I have been sort of looking at it thinking, do you know what, I'd love another 159. I'm actually quite tempted to hold on to that for myself for a while. This is going to be quite an expensive repair, it turns out. And so that does mean I'm going to have to sell it to get the money back. Basically, I'm emptying my piggy bank in order to get enough cash together to get this thing fixed. And it's going to have to sell, and sell well, and to cover its own costs. But I have been doing stuff to it. It does look really nice. There appears to be a weed growing through the wheel nut. That's growing in the wheel nut. That's impressive. This is a very, very beautiful car. Every time I see it, I think, wow, what an attractive machine this is. And the interior, as I've said before, is it's just incredible. I don't think I've seen a cream leather interior. I've seen plenty of tan leather interiors in red 159s and 156s, but I've never seen a cream one before. Now it's not so frosty. You can actually see there's a bit of green stuff growing on. Once it's fixed, which is hopefully going to happen mid-January, I'm really, really looking forward to A, MOTing it and driving, seeing how it drives, and B, more than that, giving it an incredible cleanup, because this thing is just such an amazing design. It's Giugiaro at his best. This is the 210 horsepower, 20 valve, 5-cylinder turbo diesel, and it absolutely flies. I think these are beautiful cars. They drive really nicely. They drive very heavily for an Alfa, if anything. They're very sort of BMW, German, Mercedes kind of a feel, perhaps even a hint of Audi in there. They do still have that hint of an Alfa Romeo verve. This is going to be good. As I say, I've been doing more stuff to it. I've had the generator back out here. I've had more tools. Stuff is happening. Money has been spent. Plans are afoot. But unfortunately, it's going to get expensive. It's going to get sold. Probably about £2,000 to £2,500, I expect, will be the listing price on this thing, based on what other ones are going for and the condition it's in. Anyway, right, that's the next car on the list. Now let's go and find some other cars. Freelander in a field? Probably yes. Right, now this one is something of a family favourite on the fleet. This is Hippo the Freelander, Mark 1 Freelander 2-litre TDI Kalahari. Now I had one of these as a 3-door back in the early noughties, and I really, really liked it until the head gasket went, of course. This is the diesel one, so it does have the automatic, which I'm not a fan of, but it does seem to be more reliable because the TD4 doesn't tend to brake very much. It's a bit upgraded on the BMW version of it, which is basically is. And the jet drag gearbox, which is the automatic that's bought in, that's had the solenoid fail, which I've now done. And basically, it's a pretty decent car. We'd sort of roll around with the roof tent on it in the summertime, do a bit of camping. It's got the all-season, all-terrain Falcon, what are they called? Wild Peaks, which mean the car is great in pretty much any circumstance you care to name. It's good for the on-road, it's good for off-road, it's great for the wintertime. So it's a really handy thing to have lurking about the place. It's reasonably economical. It's got a biggish boot, which is exactly the right size and shape to put your dog cage into. And it's now got the privacy glass tinting in the back of it and the tow bar, which means it's extra useful. Projects or plans for the upcoming year. I don't know if you can see the shape of that sill just behind the front wheel. I have patched this driver's sill numerous times for the MOT. Next MOT is due in April, and I've noticed more rust popping through, so I'm going to get a welder friend to do a complete front to back sill on this thing and just whop it all out and sort it all out properly. I'd wanted a Mark 1 Freelander as a future classic for a long time, but really wanted a 3-door early one with a 1.8 and the terrible colour schemes. This is actually far more practical, it turns out, but I'd also really quite like an old G-Wagon. Also really fancy a Discovery 2 as well. I could be tempted if I'd, well, I have got other cars on the fleet which are new and sensible-ish, to replace the Mercedes estate with something like a Discovery 2 to sort of cover a lot of bases and sort of change the dynamic of the fleet entirely. I don't know. But for the moment, it's very handy and it's very comfortable, and Mrs. Furious even said shall we take it to her family up in Lincolnshire over the holidays when we go and visit them for a couple of days. So, who knows? Who knows what its future is apart from certainly a bit of welding. It definitely wants that. Oh, and it still wants grinding bearing taken out from the prop shaft as well. That's sorted out. And, oh, I think it wants new front shocks. So, we shall conclude our walk around the Furious fleet here in the barn of broken dreams. Yes, I do like alliterating quite a lot. And on that note, I will mention I will not show you upstairs today in the barn of broken dreams because that is currently very full with Mercedes parts and Mini parts and merchandise. In fact, everything up there has to begin with M. I've had to get rid of the kettle because it doesn't alliterate. Quite annoying really, because it's quite thirsty working down here. Anyway, let's show you what we've got down here in what is looking like hot hatch heaven for the moment. More alliteration. So we'll start in the furthest corner. We have the Y-plate Mini, chassis number 202. I think that's actually chassis number 200 that was assembled of all the new Minis in the world ever. It's a lovely car. It's not broken. I've just had the battery on top-up charge and I've just moved the battery charger onto something else. Nothing actually wrong with it, just keeping it super-duper topped up. Little issue with this thing at the minute, I've been struggling with radios. I've left the keys in the car for it. The radio that came with it was a Sony, so I fitted a correct model year Mini radio because I wanted the right look for it. Then I had a problem where I misentered the code and then it's locked itself out and now it's completely locked, and I've bought 3 other radios for it and none of them would unlock to the car. So I'm looking like I might have to go and get a basic standard radio back in again. But I've left the centre dashboard disassembled for the moment and the parts are upstairs for a second Mini upstairs, in the hope I can find a correct working radio or someone who can decode it, because the person on eBay who originally decoded the radio for me appears to have vanished. Anyway, lovely car. Not putting too many miles on it because it's such a rarity, but I am taking it to shows and things during the summertime, using it as and when. Like we took it down to the Isle of Wight in 2023. We were going to go to the Isle of Wight back in again this year in 2024. Booked the ferry tickets, booked the camping. We're going to go to that big Mini show and have a long weekend over there, because it's really, really good place to visit actually. I would definitely recommend a weekend at the Isle of Wight. Osborne House, really good place to explore if you've got English Heritage membership. Really good fish and chips down there too. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, we were going to take this thing, but I got really, really ill. I caught some virus that was going around the school. My son was ill with it and I got it, and then I was just too sick to go down that weekend, which is really sad. Anyway, hopefully we'll get a few more drives out of this car this summer. Yeah, and plenty more Mini things. It'll be 24 years old this year come the summertime. In fact, so the following year, 2026, this will be 25 years old, which is just astonishing to think that the new Mini is approaching a quarter century. That's just mad. Next to it, we've got Veyford the Volvo, the big 740 GL. You need the very wide lens to get this car all in. sorry, it's very dusty in here because of the sanding that's been going on in the far corner. Nearly that's done. This is one of those cars, I keep saying I'm going to sell this one. I've had my fun with it. We did me and my friend Barry, we did the trip over to Gothenburg. Is that the beginning of this year or last year? I can't remember. Time flies. Time just absolutely rockets through. Did the trip to Gothenburg, and the plan was that was going to be my big swan song for this car, and then I was going to get rid of it. Thing is, though, I park it up and I forget about it. I think, okay, yeah, I don't mind selling that one. I'll stick that one on Car and Classic or contact some friends who've expressed an interest. And yeah, then I come back and look at it and think, oh, that car looks so good. Or I go and pick up my son from school, and the reaction this thing gets is just like nothing else. Big, boxy 80s, amazing. When the world turns to disaster next year and the bombs start falling, the cockroaches and the Volvo 740s are all that's going to be left running. It's not an electronic car. It's got a Bosch Cagetronic mechanical fuel injection system in it, so that thing will just keep on running forever. As long as there's something you put in the tank, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as it burns, that car will move. It's also extremely comfortable. It is horrifically thirsty though. It makes the Crown Vic look economical, which is weird. Okay, I'm losing count of cars. I need to do a big tally up in a second and tell you where I've got to. Next to that, that's hot hatch number 1, that's hot hatch number 2. This is the Alfa 145 Cloverleaf. Yet another really, really rare car. And so is that. And that's not exactly common either, being a white reg pre-production car. I wanted a 145 for so long, because I had a 146 years and years ago when there was just used cars basically. I wanted a 145 back then, I couldn't find a 145. Then when I got this, I was looking around for a 146, couldn't find a 146 anywhere. So I ended up with a 145. And honestly, when you're buying a 145 now, you pretty much take what you can find because there are so few of them left. This car has been, if you've seen the channel a little while, a bit of a problem child in so much as it's had a few electrical gremlins down to earths in the engine bay. The person I bought it from, who was apparently an Alfa specialist, had welded it and fixed it. He bought it as a donor because the engine had massive, like £7,000 of receipts of engine work. However, it was quite rotten, but his welding, it turned out, wasn't that good, as he just plated over the rust, and that was coming through by the time I got to my second MOT with it. And worse, the strut tops had big washers on top of the shock absorbers and filler on top and painted. I will never stop moaning about that because that was just horrifically dangerous, and someone who's apparently a professional did that. I am not impressed. But it is now a wonderful car. The engine absolutely sings. I've driven a few other 145s and 146s with the 2 litre. It's a work of art. The noise, the engine noise at the beginning of my videos, what's the thing, is this engine, and it's just amazing. That battery has died. There's a new one in the boot. I'm not connecting it at the moment. I'm not changing the battery at the minute. I'm just leaving it on top up because the incredibly good immobiliser and alarm system it's got on it. Because that was another fun thing. The immobiliser died on a speed bump, so I had to get an aftermarket one put in. Fun as ease. Yeah, that does seem to sap the power a little bit and drain the batteries, and that does kill a battery over time if it keeps going, yeah, being down, being drained. And yeah, so you can't fully, anyway, long story, it's a pest. But yeah, beautiful car, lovely interior, rare Momo leather, love it. Unusual Azzurro Fantasia blue, fantastic. It's one of those cars that I've wanted for so long, and now I'm so glad I've got it. I need to do a road trip in that car. This is another one that you might have seen more recently on the channel. Not almost a hot hatch, it's a coupe, but the one that was closest to the epicenter of the dust. The Rover 220 Tomcat, the coupe, or technically it's called a Rover Coupe, everyone calls it a Tomcat. And before anyone says in the comments, doesn't the Tomcat only refer to the turbos? No, the Tomcat is the body style. Tracer, Tomcat, and something else were for the 200 special models, the coupe, the estate, and the convertible. Tracer was the convertible, and I've forgotten what the estate was. I'll flash it on screen because I've forgotten. It begins with T as well. Anyway, just very recently, I've been doing the gear linkage on this thing, so that's now sorted, and that makes it drive an awful lot better. Haven't MOT'd it, but have driven it around the farm. And a couple of weeks before that, I was under the bonnet putting a new head gasket on it, because this isn't a Rover K series, it's a Rover T series, which is the old iron block aluminium head engine. And that has a fun game where it loses oil around the outside perimeter of the head gasket. It doesn't affect the way the car runs, doesn't lose oil into the engine or coolant. It just drops oil all over its exterior and gets to the point in the end where you're basically a hazard because the engine is smoking and you're dropping oil and you can knock motorbikes off and stuff. So it's just not right. So that's all good. This is due for an MOT in, I'll wait for spring because there's no point MOTing it now because I'm not going to drive it until after Christmas. There is a Rover Coupe Club event happening. I want to get it over to that because I've missed all the Rover Coupe Club events this year. And yeah, what a fine bunch of chaps they are. And finally, this is the last car in the collection, the final one of the fleet. This is the oldest car, but it's not the newest car. I've bought several since then. I was going to say it's the most recent acquisition, but it's not by a long chalk. This is the 1969 Morris Mini 1000 Automatic, which you can tell from the grille and the details. A video of this has just come out showing the extent of the rust on the shell, and it's not as bad as it could have been. I've seen far, far worse on Minis, but at the same time, it's not as good as I'd hoped. So we've got a bit of work ahead of us getting that thing sorted out. It's going to need a bunch of new panels. Some people in the comments were calling it Trigger's broom, but really it's not, because all I'm looking at changing is the outer front wings, a bit of sill, and a rear wing. So some small areas of the car, not the entire car, but calling it Trigger's broom is very much not the case at all. And yeah, the general consensus for getting the under seal off the car is either chill it and scrape it, which sounds a bit expensive, or heat it and scrape it. So get a hot air gun or something and start getting the stuff warm and literally just scratching the stuff off. That's labour intensive and a whole bunch of no fun by the sound of it. Yeah, that's a job I think I want to be taking outside probably, isn't it? Get the thing on some wheels, roll it outside, do it in the open air because it's going to be horrible doing it in here. But yes, that's that car, and yeah, it's going to need some new panels and a bunch of welding, and then we can start putting the whole thing back together again, and that is going to be awesome, isn't it? Yes, the answer is yes, no question there at all. Awesome. So I've just had a bit of a count up. I think that makes 16 cars, which is, yeah, that's not unmanageable. I used to say if it's below double figures, that's probably sensible. I've revised that now. If it's below 20, it's probably sensible. But yeah, we're going to be getting, something's going to have to sell in the new year. I don't know what. The Alfa 159, okay, I do know that's going to have to sell to pay for itself. Well, it gets back down to 15. There is a temptation to part with the Volvo because I've had lots of fun with it. I know other people are very keen to own it and enjoy it. I just want to make sure it's going to a good home if it does sell. I don't really want to sell that one though because it's just lovely. It's just so original. One owner from New Before Me, all the history. Oh, I just love that kind of thing. Perhaps the Punto because I've had some fun with that car. I've enjoyed it a lot. But it's not the most exciting of all the cars to drive, but it is an interesting car being the earliest one. I don't know what something's going to have to give. The 75? That's beautiful. Not the most fun car to drive compared to others. So yeah, it's beautiful, it's comfortable, not funnest. The 200 VI, very fun to drive. So yeah, some hard decisions I think will have to be made about what stays and goes in the new year because there just isn't room for everything. People keep asking about the turbo kit that I was going to stick on the Tomcat. The thing is, I look at it and it looks a bit big for that engine. I don't think it's really going to work beautifully and be a nice thing to drive. I think it would just be a bit brutal and probably end up breaking the car. I'll probably find somewhere else for that to go at some point. It's still upstairs, it's still safe. We'll find a home for it, but probably not the Tomcat. Tomcat drives nicely without it. So yes, but lots of shows, lots of things to do. Got Rustival coming up at some point in 2025. That's coming back. I've got plans for various furious driving social meets around the country. Just morning meet-up, cars and coffee kind of things in various locations. And yeah, also I plan to do some road trips and things. We're planning on doing family road trip to Italy as we do every couple of years, but that'll be in the new Mercedes. But I want to take this thing. There's lots of the UK to explore as well, but also lots of Europe. So yeah, lots of road trips. I want to spend more time on the road driving these things rather than fixing them in the coming year. Maybe that's the plan, so farm out some of the work so I've got more time to be on the road rather than under the cars, because that's what I enjoy doing more, driving the cars rather than fixing the cars. But we'll just try and strike a happy medium across 2025. And also, there are lots of other cars I'd like to own and like to experience. So yeah, something's gonna have to make some room so I can squeeze more cars in to the collection, keep them rotating. So what's your favorite of all of these cars? I think 16. Now I'm thinking, did I include the Freelander in that count up to 16? Are there 17? That's a worrying thought. Right, okay. What's your favourite and what do you think I should keep forever and what do you think I should let go? And I know I'm going to get very differing opinions. This is partly why I've hung on to so many cars for the channel, because I know what people are like. One person's meat is another man's poison or something. Is that the phrase? Yeah. A lot of people love the Volvo. A lot of other people absolutely hate it. Same with the Mini, same with the Alfa, same with everything on this fleet. People have their absolute favourites. They're ardent fans of everything, but also strong haters of everything as well. A lot of people hate the Crown Vic, but love the Mini, and 100% vice versa as well. So yes, let me know what you think in the comments, but this is the state of the fleet at the moment. Every car needs a little bit of work doing to it, or a big bit of work doing to it. The Volvo I didn't mention, that thing, I didn't run through its bits of stuff to do. There isn't really a lot to do to it. There was a little bit of a weird bit of rust on the floor, which they've got an advisor in the MOT. Before I either sell it or re-MOT it next year, that does need to have that little bit of rust taken care of. Also, I did find an incredible top-of-the-range original Volvo radio for that thing as well on eBay, which I've not fitted because I was thinking I might sell it, but at the same time, I want to see that thing with the best radio possible. I do like a good car radio. Right, I think that's everything. That's maybe the last video before Christmas. I don't know, my scheduling is all over the place at the moment. But yeah, let me know in the comments, and happy Christmas to all of you and happy New Year, and we'll see you in future videos throughout 2025. Goodbye.